This episode includes sensitive content around the loss of a child to cancer, which may be triggering to some of our listeners. Listener discretion is advised as the content may be distressing for some. Welcome to another episode of Exhausted Sparrows Unite, where I am here to encourage you to embrace your messiness and live your best authentic life. Today, we're diving in deep into some often hidden emotions that accompany the journey of grief. I am joined by my remarkable and close friend, Jennifer Huber, who suffered a heartbreak that no parent should have to endure, the loss of her 15-year-old to cancer. Together today, we're going to be talking about what does it mean to live authentically through an unimaginable loss, to be honest with ourselves and others, and to allow ourselves not to be okay. This conversation might be difficult, but it's one that so many need to hear, especially those that feel this pressure to put on a brave face. So, Jennifer, welcome.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend.
I'm going to start crying already, so we better get the tissues out.
We have absolutely no tissues, but of course it's understandable. I mean, you know, your story is one of such insurmountable grief, but part of the reason that I brought you in here today is, for those that don't know, the podcast is really based around our charity, and the charity is called Sparrow's Nest. And what we do here in the Hudson Valley, 5 counties in New York, is we feed families that are facing a cancer diagnosis. So my hands and my whole body is in the middle of this day in and day out. And I get to see how people look at grief and how, or if they even process this grief and how they move forward. And part of the reason that I brought Jen in is just because through all of it, you know, you've been very honest in all of the messiness of it.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people feel that, you know, we have to just say, I'm fine, because that's kind of what we're taught. But I'd love for you to get into the story about your little girl and kind of give listeners, you know, some information about, you know, how things unfolded.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for inviting me on here to talk with you, because you're one of my dear friends, and it's the support system of people like you that help to kind of get people through these kinds of things. So I appreciate you giving me a voice today to share this stuff. So yeah, like Krista shared, we first met under unfortunate circumstances, you and I, because my daughter in August of 2016, she was diagnosed with a very rare form of it was basically a spindle cell sarcoma, but at the time they had really no idea what it was. And it was just prior to her 11th birthday. So she was in the summer in between 5th and 6th grade. And, you know, we were getting ready to start middle school. And then out of nowhere, life just changes, like completely comes out of left field and just changes. And so she started with, her cancer was on her kidney, was on her right kidney. And so we went into treatment on the first day. What should have been her first day of middle school was her first day of chemo. And her birthday was at the same time. And it was just, you know, you're just numb. You don't even know, you know, what to do. And you kind of just go in it, and everything is just overwhelming. So she, you know, proceeded with pretty intense treatment. She had 7 cycles of chemo. She had 26 abdominal radiation treatments to her stomach. We were in and out of the hospital constantly. You know, she would start a cycle of chemo, and then, you know, you have like a little bit of time after you're done with your cycle of chemo to come back and try to recoup and have your counts kind of, regenerate. And if you get a fever, you have to go back in the hospital. And so that would happen with us every single time. So it became our home away from home. So we were there. And of course, Sparrow's Nest, you know, took us on as being one of the first families to feed a child that was ill. And, you know, you just start getting this tremendous support system of people that just kind of rally around you, because you know, we're just your normal people. This type of stuff always happens to other people, right? You always just think like, wow, that's so bad. I feel so awful for them. And you never think that something like this is going to happen to you and to your baby until it does, and then as a parent, all you want to do is fix it for them. And no matter what you do, it's out of your control. You can, you try to fix it and you try to be there and love them through it. But ultimately, none of it's really in your control. So you just have to kind of endure, right? And sometimes enduring means, let me get through this next minute. Let me get through this next 5 seconds. Let me just rest for a minute and take a deep breath, those kinds of things. So, so she went through her first round of cancer, and then we wrapped up things in, I want to say it was January, February of 2017. And naively, we thought, okay, she's done. This is over. This is behind us. And, she went back to school and we kind of got better. We sort of got a clear bill of health, and she was going for, when you have cancer, you have to go for repeatedly get screened to check and make sure things are not recurring and stuff. So she would get, those imaging and things done, and things were okay for a while. And then she went back to school, and I'm a school teacher myself, and I went back to school myself that following fall of 2017. And we started out the year and just thinking, okay, we're warriors and we got this behind us. And then the unimaginable happened again. It was actually right around this time in 2017, 7 or 8 years ago, that the cancer came back, and it came back with a vengeance and went into her lungs and went to multiple spots in her lungs. So we were back at it again, and she went back in, and that was probably, every cancer experience is challenging, but that was probably the most scary and challenging at the time because we had already been through the unthinkable. So when you start a diagnosis with something and you've never experienced it and you don't know what to expect, you're kind of going into it blindly, and it's scary, but you go into things blindly, and the second time around, you know what to expect, and it's terrifying, So yeah, we all just rallied again, and she really fought hard, and things were getting really, really tough for her. We didn't have an end date of when this was supposed to wrap up, because now it was just, let's just fight to keep her alive. Let's just keep survival going. And so basically we just kept fighting, and then it led us into the following spring and in and out of the hospital. At one point we were in the hospital for 3 months straight. She was having fevers that just would not give up. And so we lived there. We lived in the hospital. And so, of course, you were mentioned stuff about grief. How do you not start to have anticipatory grief at that time of like, what's going to happen? Every single thing. Is this going to be our last Christmas together? Is this going to be our last Easter together? And, as a parent who's, again, trying to fix everything and make everything perfect, you start spinning your wheels. You start acting like that person in the circus that's like spinning all the plates in the air just to keep everything going and trying to make everything perfect for them, because you don't know if it's going to be their last or your last time with them. So you've got all those emotions going on top of being a wife and being a mother to other children, and you have a household at home that you have to keep going. And I have a career that I had to put on hold. Thankfully, I had a beautiful support system with my job as well. And, you're a momcologist too, and you're also trying to take care of your own mental health. And there's just so many things that are involved with all of this. But Emma continued to get really, really sick. And we were almost on hospice. I wasn't accepting hospice coming in. They did send hospice to our house, and they did meetings and stuff, but I wasn't in that mindset that I was ready to allow that at the time. And a few weeks after that, I want to say this was like May now of 2018, I enrolled her in a study up in Boston, just as like a last-ditch effort to try to help and see whatever we have to do to try to like help things and see what can be done. We had really no other options at this point. And that was basically a study that did genetic testing of the tumor cells, and they were able to miraculously identify that she had this very rare fusion in her cancer that many people in the world actually had. So she was quite the unicorn in that regard. And being a child, since they were able to identify that she had this rare, it was like called an NTRK2 fusion, they were able to match her with a targeted therapy drug that pretty much once we put her on that drug, it was our miracle. Like it was like literally like the skies opened up from God himself and handed us this miracle medication that made her better. It literally cleared up her lungs. she had multiple tumors like the size of fists in her lungs. I mean, they were big. And so we started taking this medication that she qualified for because of this special genetic testing that they had done and identified, and it healed her and it made her better. And she was fine. The only thing was that she had to be on this medication to keep the cancer at bay. It was almost like a firewall, the medication was. And she was one of only several children worldwide that was on this. She was definitely one of these people that was paving the way of helping these doctors learn and understand what these types of drugs can do for people. And just, she was kind of like the guinea pig. But of course, we were all in because it was saving her life.
100%.
We went from being, she was so sick to thinking we were going to lose her to like 3 months later going for her imaging. And they're like, yeah, so the tumors that she had were like pretty much cut in half by this medication within several months. And then a few months more down the line, they were gone. They were completely like, you couldn't even see them on the imaging. And so it was one of those things we were like, okay, she's just going to be on these drugs for the rest of her life. Sometimes people have to take blood pressure medication or heart medication or whatever to kind of keep themselves healthy and stable. And that's what we said this was going to be the thing that she had to do. And of course, we were willing to do it. So we would go up to Boston every month. We'd get her medication. We'd come back. She was able to resume normalcy, go back to school. Her hair grew back. Looking at her, you would think that she was just your typical teenager that had nothing else going on in her life. Meanwhile, she had, stage 4 cancer still. She never was completely in remission. And then cancer doesn't play nice. And we were on this drug and we were having a lot of success with it. And it mutated. It kind of twisted things around and things mutated. And then again, the unimaginable happened. She started having headaches and we were trying to figure out what's going on, with these headaches, and went down to the hospital and got some scans done, and it had moved into her brain because it had mutated. So like it kind of, it outsmarted the drug basically. So then it was like this constant race. Let's find another drug. And her doctors were amazing, both up in Boston and down here in New York. They worked collaboratively as a team, and they did everything, we could to try to help and find another answer and find another option. And, she went on different targeted therapy drugs to try to help. And some of them would work for periods of time. And then there would be increased activity again. And we'd have to go back and we'd switch gears. And 4 years ago, last weekend, actually, was the last time that we went up for scans. It was right before Halloween of 2020. We went up to Boston to have her monthly, her scans, and usually they call me on the ride home when I'm driving back home and say, okay, things are good. We'll see you in a month. And I didn't get that phone call that particular ride home. And I was like, okay, something is up. And I called her doctors as soon as we got home, and they said, we need you back up here tomorrow because the drug's not working again. And we need to take her off of this particular drug to kind of clear out her system so that we can start her on this other drug that we want to try with her next. And it's that wonky time in between when we took the firewall down that the cancer just completely got super aggressive. So I went from having, although you always know she's sick and there's stuff going on, she literally was making TikToks in the car on the ride up. I mean, she was a 15-year-old kid.
She was. I think we were watching the TikToks on the car on the ride up.
And just, typical, all right, we're at this again. This, as scary as it is, it did become very habitual in a lot of ways because we were just, Emma always was one of those kids that, all right, something would happen and then we'd figure out a way to make it better. And it was like, she was like that performer that would spin around and go, ta-da, okay, I'm fixed now. Everything's better. So you never, you always know in the back of your mind that something can go really, really bad and wrong, but we just didn't think that it was going to happen that weekend. And the cancer just got super aggressive within a day, 2 days. And we lost her. We lost her on November 2nd of 2020.
I remember that phone call.
Lost my baby.
I remember where I was.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think part of the reason that I wanted to speak to you today is because, one, you're just so honest and open and real about it. But you were, throughout the entire diagnosis, something that I loved about you is you put it out there in your own words. Yes. I think social media is just sometimes amazing.
Absolutely.
And sometimes completely dangerous.
I totally agree.
People take these stories for whatever reason and snowball all of these exaggerated things
Yes.
that aren't even true. And then you've got this monster on your hands. And what I loved is that you took this and you said, you are going to hear my voice and you are going to read what I am telling you is going on with my daughter.
Right. So I think, at the time too, like my Emma and her father and I met in college and we divorced when she was 2 years old. So we came from a situation, in addition to Emma just being the personality that she was like the mayor everywhere she went. She had such a dynamic personality and, people just adored her and she'd walk into the room and people just knew who she was and she just brought this energy. So, she had her own following, if you want to call it. But, being in a family situation where she has a household with her father and then all of those people connected to her on that side and then a household with, I'm remarried and, we have our household and, all of the people in extended family, plus all the friends from college. And plus I've been a public school teacher for 25 years. So all the families that I've known over the years in that community and this community. And so we were so blessed with so much support, which is just, it was literally like, the best way I could describe it is like, remember in the 80s when like the Care Bears would all stand together and you had like the Care Bear stare of people just like shooting their kindness and energy at you. Like that's what it felt like, And so you have all this coming at you and you just want to make sure, because like you said, social media is a wonderful thing, but sometimes the wrong things get put out there and things get misconstrued. And at one point there was somebody who thought that she needed a kidney transplant and somebody out of the kindness of their heart were willing to put out stuff on social media that they were going to look for a kidney. And I was like, no, thank you so much. I appreciate your kindness, but that's not necessary. And that's not, so I wanted to make sure that there was a space where accurate information and up-to-date information was being put out to our masses of people that just loved and supported us. So I created a Facebook page for her that within 2 or 3 days, we had over 1,000 followers on
And
her
that Facebook page is called
Warrior Princess Emma.
Just in case anybody's listening, and I'm sure you're still letting people in.
Yeah, it's still on there. It's kind of, obviously it's slowed down a lot. Her father and I will just post kind of memorial type of things for her from time to time. It's not as active as it was, I would just, because, again, on the other side too, when you're in it, when you're going through, your child and you're helping them heal and you're sitting bedside with them and you just, sometimes you need a break, although everybody has nothing but the best intentions, but people text you and people reach out to you and sometimes that's the only thing they talk to you about too, and I'm still human and I still want to know what's going on the, the TV show that happened the other night or those kinds of things. So that was sort of like my way of putting the accurate information out to the masses. Everybody knew. And then if you reach out to us, then just like, tell me that you went to dinner last night or like you're yearning so much for the normalcy. So that was also my way of getting like the hard, tough stuff out and everybody could just know what needed to be said. And then I don't have to constantly, respond to another text or those kinds of things.
Well, it's mentally exhausting.
Although people have the best intentions, but it's mentally exhausting. So it was like, okay, let me just get this out there quick. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Now everybody knows what's going on, the latest update. And now let's just focus on this and whatever. Yeah.
And your writing was always there was always a light to what you wrote. Even in the darkest of information, there was always a light to the way that you were writing it, right? The hope, and you were always speaking of, the healing, which had to be therapeutic for you.
Absolutely. Because I needed that mindset myself. How do I show her that I'm scared? Although I was, but you have to that your children look to you. Like to judge, they watch your reactions, they watch what you're doing and how you're responding to things. And so I was very mindful and careful about how I presented things because I didn't want to create more anxiety and fear for her because already was really scary, so I had to be in that mindset of, I wouldn't say positivity because I don't know if I was a, super Pollyanna positive person all the time, but I definitely leaned into my faith a lot and I would just use that to try to put out this positive message and bring this energy that we were hoping for. That's all you have. That I felt like I had control over.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think after Emma passed, watching you on social media walking this line where I appreciated, though, that you weren't fine and you were letting people know that you weren't fine. Because I think sometimes we have like this societal pressure, right, to push us to show a strength that we don't even have. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's because, you know, we think that's what's expected of us. Right. And if that's so, how sad is that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Because, you know, you really don't have that strength in the middle of that heartbreak. And that should be okay. That should authentically be able to be what you should say.
And I think everybody grieves differently.
100%.
Right? So like
sure.
there's no right or wrong way to grieve, you know, because you're pulling different experiences. You're pulling, you know, whether you have a religious background or you don't, or just like, you know, I had grandparents that passed away in my life, but I was a young child, you know, I didn't have somebody that is this profoundly connected to me other than my daughter. You know what I mean? That was the first major, very, very profound loss that I had outside of my grandparents when I was like 13. And then you know, every loss hurts and everything's a little different, but it's, you know, you pull from all of your experiences and you pull from your support system and the people around you. And it's okay to grieve differently, you know? And so you can't judge other people for, you know, there's other parents that around the same time that I lost Emma, you know, these warrior parents that sit bedside with their children, they are the toughest people you ever want to meet in your life. I mean, there's some pretty amazing people out there. And there's a group of us in particular that kind of lost our kids all around the same time. And we all reach out to each other and support one another, but they grieve very differently than I do. And, you know, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I do put stuff out there, you know, and sometimes, you know, you get little comments, why are you so public with certain things? And part of me, the reason for doing some of that is I feel like if I'm able to help one other person through our story or hear how we handled this or how we handled that or what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling about this, if it gets to one person's ears that are struggling with something, then it gives a little purpose for some of this stuff that because I'm still trying to figure out, why did this happen? Well, you know, I've had my moments where I'm yelling and screaming at God and crying on the floor and just grieving the way any parent who's lost a child would. But then, you know, when you see that just by sharing my raw situation or how authentic I was with this or that, and it helped this person or it helped that person, or hearing about Emma's story and how it gave them an idea to do this or do that they didn't think of before, it brings a purpose to all of this for me. And it helps me to heal, to try to help other people a little bit through it.
Sure. And you know, you've experienced it. It's different when someone who hasn't experienced that grief tries to help compared to somebody that does. There's a completely different connection with you and a parent whose child is now diagnosed with cancer than anything I say. Yeah. You know, and I get to meet and love all of you, but you know, I'm still not in the middle of it.
You don't
I haven't
know
experienced
unless you know.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know unless you know.
It's true.
So, you know, you also, right, have to give yourself permission not to have any expectations of yourself, right? Not to have any timelines on yourself. Like there's a lot of that you have to go through, and you have to be able to let control of, especially if you like control, which both of us like to have some kind of control.
I'm a teacher, of course.
Hypothetically. I do. So how does that look when you really had to say?
Sometimes it looks really messy. And other times it's okay. You know, it's a dated, sometimes you have to wake up and say, okay, you have to make that choice for yourself. I'm going to allow myself to be messy today. And sometimes I'm going to pull it together, and I have to, you know, there's other things I have to do. And, you know, so it's really a moment by moment choice sometimes. And it's okay to allow yourself the grace to be messy when you need to be messy.
Well, let's talk about grace.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate the process of living life without her, right? Like, how were you able to continue living and being in the moment and giving yourself grace for everything you were feeling, right? Because there's anger, there's guilt. I mean, I
So
can't even
things.
imagine how many different emotions there are, but how do you give yourself grace through something this traumatic?
So there's a few things. You have to show up for yourself. Bottom line, like you have to put in the work. I would be lying if I didn't say that I needed a lot of help. I went to a therapist, a grief trauma therapist, for a period of about 6 or 7 months, and then that kind of plateaus. It's good, everybody's a different timeline. I've worked with a life coach. I do Reiki. I do yoga. I meditate. I lean into my family. Again, like I said, I have a beautiful support system that not everybody has, and so I'm so grateful for that. I have a soon to be 5-year-old little boy. I have to show
You're
up for
so
him.
busy. You are so busy.
I'm a full-time
Sure.
teacher. I've been teaching for 25 years. I have to get out of bed and go to work and be there for my little people that I teach, So there's things that you just have, you have to do, and you have to just do it,
And if you don't have those things, then maybe you create some things, right? That can be a distraction, that can get you out of the house, that can get you moving.
Sometimes there's healthy distractions and sometimes there's not, and so people fall into those pitfalls too. You start spending money, overspending money, or, sometimes people turn to alcohol or other things, so like I can't speak to other people's experiences. I can speak to mine, but it's a daily choice to just, all right, how am I going to show up for myself today? If that means I'm ridiculously busy, but I'm going to carve an hour out on a Wednesday night and go to my yoga class because that's what I need, then that's what you have to do. Or, I got a gazillion things going on, but I'm going to take a walk with my dogs down to the stream in the back of my house and just sit and breathe for a few minutes. It's just being, you have to show up for yourself. That's the best advice I can give, because when you don't, after a certain period of time, it just builds and builds and builds, and then you explode and you take it out on the people around you, and then it's more ugly than it needs to be.
Sure. It's not healthy for you. You're already in such a sad place, you know, and you're just trying to pull yourself out every day. So
I think part of it too, for me too, I have a particular belief system about where my daughter is right now. And I, everybody pulls from their, again, like I said before, everybody pulls from their experiences with stuff, but I am confident that she is okay and that she's fine. And I know I'm going to start crying, but like for me as her mom, as much as I miss her and I want me here more than anything in the world, she was dealing with something that was so hard and so painful and so traumatic for her. And it was hurting her. And I know for a fact she's in a place right now where she's safe from all of that. So as her mom, I am taking my own selfishness of wanting her here, and I'm feeling okay. I wouldn't say,
I mean, that's hard, Jen. That's so hard.
To like know that she's okay. I'm not okay.
Right.
She's okay. So I have, I know she's safe and protected from all that I was trying to keep her safe and protected from. So.
And you also know that you will be able to see her again one day whole.
Absolutely. And I feel her around me and, all those things, we can get deep about that stuff too. But I mean, I feel her energy with us. I know she's probably here in this room with it because you were one of her favorite people, Krista Jones.
I mean, she and I, yes, I made her potato salad just in case she showed up today.
Yes.
But yeah, that's really what it is, right?
Yeah. And I lead, the times when it's hard, the holidays are coming, and, my little boy, he's at an age now where he knows he was 10 months old when she passed away. And so he was so little, and he knows he has a big sister, but he's like, he's like at that age where he doesn't understand death. And like, well, where is she? Like, we have a big, beautiful picture of her on the wall. And I'm like, oh, Mommy, yeah, I'm a little sad. I'm missing Emma today. Well, she's right there. He points to her picture because he just doesn't get it. He's like so literal. So we're at that point where we're leading into the holidays. We just had a birthday for her, and Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month is a lot in the fall. So you just take it in stride, and sometimes you do get that grief burnout after all of it. So again, what do you have to do? You have to separate yourself and make carve out that time to just, okay,
To take a breath.
slow down. Yeah.
So before we wrap it up, like you said earlier, people grieve differently. There are people that are just angry, and there are people that are in acceptance, and they're all different places.
I've been there too.
What would you suggest for the people on the outside, right? Because I hear of some people that completely stay away because they think, oh my goodness, they have so much going on. But, I will talk to families that will say that's not what we need.
Right.
And then there are some people that are continuously in your face, which also may not be what you need. But
Sure.
what should somebody on the outside do? What would be good advice since everybody is different?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to just, and this goes for anything, you have to teach people how to treat you, basically. And it's like that with anything. And it's like that certainly with grief. So you have to, I've had days where I've gone to work and I'm having a rough morning, and I've had some of my colleagues come in and they want to talk to me about this or that. And I've had to say, look, I'm sorry, I can't do this today. Maybe, touch it. And people respect that. But again, it's just teaching people how you want to be treated and how, if people don't know unless you teach them.
I love that.
That's the teacher in me, I guess,
But I love that, right? Because every day is different. And so
Right.
some days you're going to say, friends, can we get together? I'm really sad
I need
and
a
lonely.
little
and
extra, I need somebody to make me laugh, or somebody, let's go for a walk. And other times you do want to just be alone, and so, but people don't know unless you tell them.
Sure.
And just say, this is one of those days where I need a little extra more support. And other times maybe not so much, or maybe you are going to be the support for the other person that, I've had a lot of people reach out to completely different circumstances than mine, but have lost loved ones. And so they reach out to me because they think I'm like the guru or something with some of this stuff, which I'm like, I wouldn't say guru, but you know what I mean? Like, I walked it,
Yeah.
And so I try to kind of just hold space for them, and listen. Nobody wants advice sometimes either, They just want you to be there.
So, if somebody doesn't actually say that, if you're listening now and you are, you have a loved one that is going through grief and you don't exactly know what they need, maybe the best thing to do is ask them.
Yeah.
And you may have to ask them 5 times a day.
They don't even know what they need sometimes either. I mean, people would do that even when Emma was sick. What can I do to help you? I don't know. I don't know. But just, pray for us, do what, so, and one day, what you need one day is very different than what you might need another day. So, again, I think it's most important to know for yourself, to allow yourself that space to figure it out when you need to. There's no right or wrong. Like I said before, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. There really isn't. It's so different for everybody and everybody's circumstance, and the person that they're grieving over is so different from one person to the next. And, it's not a fun club to be in at all,
It's not a fun club.
No.
And do you notice now, do you have a PTSD? I feel that I hear this over and over again, that you are just trying to survive it. You are not even in it. You are just trying to look ahead to survive it. Right. And then when it's over, there is this huge weight that falls on you because of all you've been through, where you couldn't have all the emotions you wanted to let out.
Well, it's interesting you said that earlier when I mentioned, it's like when you're in it and you have all these people surrounding you, kind of like the Care Bears all shooting their energy at you, and and then and in my case, my daughter passed, and then you still have the circus of energy all around you during the few weeks after that. You have the wake and the funeral and then all of a sudden it all just stops. And not that anybody's intentionally trying to not be there, but people resume their lives. They go back to life, and everything just stops. And when you're in a cancer situation, it's not just, losing, like with any loss, people lose somebody and then you go through that and then you have that silence afterwards. But when you're fighting cancer, it's a different level of busyness because you're constantly running to doctors, and you have, so many, like I said before, I've always felt like that circus performer spinning all the plates in the air and keeping everything going. And then Emma passed away, and it was a strange thing, and a lot of therapy for me to be okay with saying that it was like taking a platter that I was spinning in the air and then just putting it down, and I finally was allowed to let it to land, because it always would kind of be like one of those planes that would fly and it would touch the ground a little bit, and then something would happen to kick us back up in the air again when Emma was sick. And then finally everything just landed, and it was the most strange feeling. because we fought cancer for 4.5 years, close to 4.5 years, to now I don't have to go to Boston anymore. I don't have a doctor's appointment. I don't have to rush her. I mean, it was just like an eeriness to it. So I forgot where I was going with telling this part of the story, but it's just knowing that you're not alone, I guess, when those things happen. And it's always like, if I have a friend of mine that I know, like a girlfriend of mine recently lost her father, and everybody's obviously helping and supportive right around. I waited like 3 or 4 weeks, and then I sent her the card. I said, this is the time I know now that you need to hear from somebody, because I felt that way too.
Yeah.
Because people go back to their lives and that's what happens. It's not for any bad reason other than people just do that, so it's the people. You would reach out to me and text me from time, it's really appreciated, those types of things. So I would encourage people to do that and be mindful of that too. If you know a friend or somebody who's going through a loss,
that's what we noticed,
those check-ins are helpful.
Absolutely. And just, with the charity, that was something that I noticed years ago. I was like, wait a second, it's not all rainbows and unicorns with diagnoses. And sometimes this is the way it ends. And then I was like, and now we're just going to stop feeding them.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, we can't do that, which is, my board was like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like,
the food coming for another year.
We have to feed them for another year, because that is exactly what happens. This loneliness settles in because there is so much busyness, and now there's so much quiet.
It's such a shift in energy. It's like, whoa, you're so in it and so much, and then it just ends, on so many levels. The person is no longer there. The energy is no longer coming at you. The busyness and the stress too. It's an insurmountable amount of stress that you're under, but you're just used to living like that. It's like fight or flight mode. Like you're just used to living like that. And then all of a sudden that stops too. So you don't know what to do with yourself.
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting journey. That's for sure.
But
doing these kinds of things, my husband sometimes would even get mad at me. Why do you go and do the races? Why, I've done 2 races with you, or, why do you put yourself in these situations where you're talking? Because I still have this desire, even though my daughter's not physically here anymore. You don't change your desire to want to be a mother to them and mother them and do things for them. So this is my way of still doing things for Emma and showing up for her and using our experience to sort of help other people and bring attention to some of these things that people don't see or realize behind the closed doors.
And it's how her legacy lives on.
Absolutely.
And, of course, you don't want this heartbreak to create this legacy.
Never wish it upon my worst enemy.
Never.
Right.
But Jen, you're just speaking to people is so amazing. People that are in this situation, because not everybody can do this.
Right.
Not everybody can go through losing a loved one from a diagnosis, a sickness, whatever it is, and then get out there in the middle of it to help other people, right? Because of course there's triggers and there's different things.
And that's okay if they can't, because some people might look to you and be like, oh, like feel bad about themselves that they're not. And for me, this is just part of my personality. I'm a nurturer, I'm a teacher, and by nature, and I want to use this. I want to give purpose to this, because I'm still figuring out the grand scheme of the purpose for all of it.
I have plenty of purposes. Like I keep saying to Jen, I'm like, Jen, and she's like, not yet. So in my head,
Krista's got big plans for
me. I
have
big plans for Jen, but
I'm not quite there for some of them yet, but she's slowly getting me on board with doing these kinds of things. I mean, this is completely out of my comfort zone to do something like this. You wouldn't think it. But it is, so like it's
just another way that God puts us all together.
Absolutely.
Like we don't see exactly what this today is about, but this is going to go far, and this is going to end up on somebody's radio station.
I hope it does.
As they're driving somewhere that is in the middle of anguish and despair and loss, or maybe not even loss, but just in the middle of a very traumatic experience that they're trying to get through. And this is going to offer them something. It's going to offer them hope, right?
I hope so. I mean, I truly believe, like God works through people, and so like if this experience that I've gone through and Emma's gone through and me sharing her story and our grief, and if it's God's way of kind of working through us and this to sort of land in the ears of somebody who really needs to hear this, then that's part of why we do it, right?
And that's exactly what's going to happen today. It is.
I hope so.
Somebody is going to hear this that needs to hear it. They are. And I'm not going to cry.
Yeah, I know. We did really good. I'm proud of us.
I can't even look at you. I know that we should have had a screen. I hope today's conversation helps you to feel encouraged, to show up authentically, even through the hardest of times. Remember, it is okay to let others know that you're not okay.
Absolutely.
In fact, it's necessary.
Yes.
It connects us and it reminds us that we're never truly alone.
It's okay to not be okay.
It is okay. Thank you, Jen, for bravely coming in today, honestly, sharing your story and your heart. If you're out there now and you're feeling lost, we want you to give yourself permission to be exactly where you are.
Yep.
Be exactly where you are. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for having me, my dear friend.
I love you, my friend. Here's to giving ourselves the grace to grow and the courage to be real and to remember we are all in this together. So be kind. Until next time.